that these games are designed for you to play a lot. They're not designed to be fun. They're going to be running numbers. They're going to try to find the most efficient way to make money. And especially if you're a big company like Riot and you see your competitors doing something that has been proven to objectively work and generate more income, why would you not do it? You literally have people who are polluting the world in the name of profit, literally leading to people dying. So like, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say a $1 billion company is using underhanded tactics to get people to play their game more and make more money. Like, people act like this is some like tinfoil hat thing, but it's like, if you even think about it for 2 seconds, this isn't a very hard thing to implement. The paper concludes that engagement-based matchmaking significantly outperforms all other methods in the number of retained players. Okay, so a lot of people are probably going to take this video pretty poorly. Honestly, I don't really care. I think I know a good amount about games like this, and I've obviously, if you've watched this channel, I have a ton of time in CS, over 3,000 hours. And I think almost anyone that's played a ton of CS will tell you that there is something wrong with Valorant, or at least people who don't have a vested interest in the game like doing well. So if like you're a neutral person and you play both a lot, and I mean like a lot, like thousands of hours, you could tell there's something off with this game. So if we're looking into it, the first thing I want to bring up, right, is stats. So a lot of people, when critiquing this video, if people end up watching this, is going to be that, oh, you're just a bad player, right? So let's pull this up. Okay, so let's pull up my stats from episode 4 act 1, which just ended maybe a day or two ago. As you can see, for this rank, from everything that I've seen, I play a small amount of games. Most of the people that I run into have almost double the amount of games I have. And that's where the issue lies. So I think a lot of the problem with Valorant is the game is designed similar to League of Legends in that it's meant to be addictive and is not really designed to be an even game. And that's why matchmaking is so messed up. So people will deny that things like losers queue exists, but I think it kind of goes more than that. Like, I think it's a little more insidious, and I don't think people realize how bad it actually is. So let's take a look at my stats here. Clearly I'm not a bad player. I'm not struggling in the game really that much, so there isn't really a reason for me to come out and be like, oh, the game is rigged, or I'm just like some salty guy who's like stuck in silver or whatever. And like you see here, I got in the diamond one. Honestly, I think I could have been a little bit higher, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes. It's not the end of the world. But if we're looking at my stats, even just objectively, you can't deny that I'm in the upper echelon of players. I'm not a pro player or anything, but obviously there's some type of issue here. So top 9% win percentage, top 21 in headshot, top 33 in KD, and then like top 15%. And this one here is the most important win percentage, because I think this is where things get really fucky, because it seems like almost every single pro player that I've seen, or any type of smurf player, and I really recommend you guys do this, to go on the Tracker Valorant website and look at almost everyone's win rate in the game. Regardless of how good or bad they are, it is always going to hover around 50%, right? And I think like that is kind of where I start to question it, because you could either think Riot just somehow has magically the best algorithm in the game for matching people, and that's why everyone's win rate is like almost deadlocked at 50. But yeah, I just don't think that's the case. I think that's pretty silly to think, and I think you'd be kind of naive to think that as well. So also we can look in here. So yeah, like my stats aren't bad. I'm not a bad player. And now that we got that out of the way, I kind of want to break down like what the actual issue with the game is. So for a long time, like the interpolation of the game has been messed up, been maybe 5-6 months now, and the devs themselves have actually acknowledged it. I'm going to try to edit in a post here where the devs themselves acknowledge that this is an issue, right? So the game devs have acknowledged that this is an issue. This is a $1 billion company. It's been 5 to 6 months, and the issue is still not fixed. You think this would be the biggest issue in a game like this, and it is, which leads me to believe, at least, that it's somewhat intentional. And now you're probably asking, well, why would they do that intentionally? It seems silly to make your game kind of messed up. Oh, and that's why we're going to pull up this article and we're going to read this right here. And before I even start this, I think a lot of people need to realize that these games are designed for you to play a lot. They're not designed to be fun. These people making the game aren't making the game for your entertainment. You are the product out there. If you are watching this video and you play Valorant, you are the product. The entire goal of the company, once again, a $1 billion company, is to get you to play more. And why do they want you to play more? Because the numbers show, and like most businesses, like they're going to be running numbers. They're going to try to find the most efficient way to make money. Now, I'm not going to blame Riot for this. Well, maybe you can a little bit, but from a business perspective, it makes perfect sense. Also, a lot of people are going to say, well, with this article, this is EA. But let's think about it from, once again, try to be as objective as possible. If you are a company, right? And especially if you're a big company like Riot and you see your competitors doing something that has been proven to objectively work and generate more income, why would you not do it? Name me one company in the world that would see their competitor doing something that works and works effectively and it's been proven to work effectively, and then they don't implement it into their own product if possible. I just want someone to really sit there and think about that, because I think that's where the biggest issue of this is. Because none of this can ever truly be proven, because Riot will never come out and say that this is a thing, because they don't have to. And this is an argument I got into a game with someone in my last game about. People will say, well, Riot wouldn't do this. It's esports, blah, blah, blah. Bro, esports is like less than 10% of Riot's income. Most of the income is people buying skins. Most of the player base is gold or below. That's where the money is. So if you're a company, why would you care about the esports and the competitive integrity, especially when you don't have to reveal it and it could never be proven because no one actually has the code of the game? If that's the argument that you're making, that this doesn't exist, you're purely coping, because that is pure fucking cap. And there's literally no reason for them to ever release that this is a thing, right? So let's read the article. First, remember that this 2017 research paper is not linked to Apex Legends, because that's what they're talking about in this specific thing. But once again, if other game companies are doing it, why would others not? And also, when you start to read this a bit more, it starts to explain a lot of the issues in Valorant. After all, Apex was released 2 years ago. It's a simple study testing if such a system is successful at increasing player retention and in turn spending. So this goes back to what I just said. Riot does not care if the game is fun. Game developers don't care if the game is fun. The people making these decisions most likely are people who don't even play games. They are businessmen. Those are the people who make the decisions at these companies. The people making the game aren't the people who make the decisions of what actually goes into the game a lot of the time, or at least in regards to systems like these. Because at the end of the day, the goal, like this article states, is increasing player retention, because that increases spending. And I feel like you have to be a literal child to think like otherwise, to think that like these game devs actually care about these players. Or not even the game devs, because maybe the game devs do care, but the company itself is willing, like what world do you live in? You know, like, and I think that's what frustrates me most about this is people will try to deny it, but it's like we live in a society where companies will literally put profit almost over everything, bro. Like, you literally have people who are polluting the world in the name of profit, literally leading to people dying. So like, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say $1 billion company is using underhanded tactics to get people to play their game more and make more money. But let's continue. The system is not SBMM, so that is important to note as well, because this is different from skill-based matchmaking. In fact, it argues that skill-based matchmaking is actually worse for increasing player retention. The system is called engagement optimized matchmaking. Rather than matching players randomly or based on their skill level, it combines a number of different factors to try to increase engagement. The paper concludes that engagement-based matchmaking significantly outperforms all other methods in the number of retained players. Now, this is true. This is 100% true, and I need you to think about this for a second. If you win too many games, right, you're going to get bored. You're going to quit the game. And everything you do in these games is tracked. And why is it tracked? Because they use that data. Why do you think companies like Facebook, Why do you think companies like Twitter, why do you think almost any website you go on tracks your behavior? It's because that information is valuable. That information is valuable because they use it to predict what you're going to do next. It's why targeted ads are such an important thing to these companies, because they see what you've bought previously, they see what sites you've gone on, and they see, oh, you're more likely to buy something in these certain conditions. So they'll try to create those conditions so you buy something. In this case, they see when you're more likely to get off the game, and they try to make it so that doesn't happen, so you play longer. Like, people act like this is some like tinfoil hat thing, but it's like, if you even think about it for 2 seconds, this isn't a very hard thing to implement. They have all of the statistics in the game. They have algorithms placed to match you in specific matches. I don't think it's that hard to really say that these things are in these games, especially when you're seeing other companies do it. But let's continue just a little bit more. Engagement optimized matchmaking aims to match players in an optimal way that maximizes overall player engagement. Based on a player's last 3 outcomes, win, lose, or draw, the risk of them quitting changes. The paper presents this table showing that 3 losses in a row or 2 wins and a loss will result the highest risk of quitting, 4.9 to 5.1%. And then it pretty much just goes on to show like all the different ways that people may churn through the game. A simplistic appraisal of the system then would be, if you get a win, you might get a harder opponent in the next match. If you lose, you'll get an easier opponent. Keeping the balance of wins, losses, and draws is core to the EOMM system. The fears that the game could be rigging your matchmaking to make you win or lose in a certain pattern. The goal of this system is to increase player engagement. Things such as time or money spent in the game, the number of matches played within a time window, or churn risk. This essentially just kind of proves what I'm saying, in the sense that there are game developers out there who do this, and I don't think it's that crazy to say that Riot is one of them, considering, like, just look at League of Legends for even like 10 minutes, and the common thing around the game, right, is that it's toxic, it's not very fun, but it is addictive. Now, why is it addictive? Because of systems like this. And then you wonder why in League of Legends, similar to Valorant, why are the games so one-sided? You'll get into games like where you're either stomping the other team or you're getting stomped out. And when you start to look at the advanced statistics like of some of these games, like, you start to realize like why it happens. Let's look at this player. This is someone I got in an argument with previously in the last game. This person claimed that I'm a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, but let's look at the stats of players like this and see why they cope. So this player has bottom 29% in KD ratio, top 15% headshot, which is solid, top 43, so like a little bit above average. So this person, and then like a below average win rate, right? So this person, in my opinion, is not that good at the game. They're probably like a little bit above average, but they're not that great. But let's look at the hours played of this person, right? 130 hours. What was I at? And I was at 86. So I objectively played the game like less than this person, but my stats are all better. And the reason that is because when you know how the system works, you can literally exploit it. I want to go a little bit more in depth on that, but let's look at this person's stats a little bit more. So this is kind of proving my point here. Even players who aren't that good, everyone hovers around like a 50% win rate regardless. So even the pros, like the top end pros of the game, are hovering around like 60% win rate, even if they're hopping on a Smurf account where they're playing with players that they're like miles ahead of. And you got to think to yourself, why does the game do that? Like, why is everyone hovering around the same win rate? And it's because they will literally put you in matches that they know you can't win. And once again, people will say that's crazy, but it's like they literally have all the statistics. Like, if we're looking through here, we can look at all the advanced statistics of the players in our games, and they can literally determine the win probability before they even put you in the match. So this isn't to say it's impossible. It's not to say that they're going to force you to lose, but they're going to do everything in their power to make it so you lose, because like we discussed here with this, you're more likely to play. They can't have you winning too much, and they can't have you losing too much. And I think it gets a little more insidious when you start to look at these things, and you can go a little more into the article. I recommend everyone kind of read it themselves, because EOMM is different in the sense that they do like underhanded shit to make it so that you either win or lose. So for instance, like if you look at some of the patents that like EA and Activision have, it's like very minuscule things like, oh, we're going to make your spread like a little bit bigger, or like just stuff that you wouldn't really notice in the game, but will give the player just a little bit of an advantage. And this is normally if you're like either doing really good or you're doing really bad. You can see it on both ends. And if we look at my most recent game, who I was playing with this person, I literally said in the very first round of the game, because if you play enough of these games and you're good at the game, you can normally tell like what kind of game it's going to be within the first 2 rounds. I said, watch, I'm not going to be able to miss the entire game, and I'm going to have peeker's advantage almost the entire game. And if we look here, what happened? I stomped everybody in the game for the most part, and it was happening all game. And it's just more proof like that I'm not salty about it, you know? Like, even when you're doing well, it doesn't feel good because you feel like you're ahead of everyone on the server. Like, you feel as if you have like an unfair advantage. And then when you lose games, it's the same thing. So to bring up the point of how you can game the system, look here in this match. So I'm plat 3. I'm getting matched with like gold 2s and stuff like that, like very unranked people. I ended up quitting out of this game because I was getting just frustrated because it felt like I was behind the server the entire game. As soon as you quit out of that game in the very beginning, what happens? The system acknowledges, oh, this person's close to quitting. So what happens the next 2 games? This one I do like mediocre or whatever, but we absolutely stomped the other team. The game wasn't really close at all. We could probably look at the stats of these players. Like, let's look at the best player on the other team. Top 17, top 9, but this guy doesn't play a lot. He's got like 50 hours, less than 100 games. Bottom 29 in KD, bottom 23 in damage. Like, this is what I'm talking about. They'll literally give you free wins against people who aren't good. And then this game, once again, we just stomped the enemy team. Like, it's 13-8, but I can tell you for sure the game was mostly a stomp. And once again, it's as if you're almost ahead of everyone on the server. So people will deny these things exist. I don't know why. I think maybe the reason is if you acknowledge that things like these exist and you acknowledge that game developers are kind of scummy and they do scummy shit like this to get you essentially addicted to the game, then you have to admit that you're wasting a lot of your time by even trying to like reach for these ranks. And I think that's why so many people will never acknowledge that this exists. And I also think a lot of the issue is, and this might sound cocky or whatever, but a majority of the player base isn't that good at the game. So like a majority of the player base is in like gold or below. And where this starts to become really noticeable is if you play the game a lot. And especially when you're playing at high ranks where things like milliseconds actually matter a lot more. To essentially boil it down, you have Riot admitting the interpolation of the game is messed up. You have countless players admitting essentially that like there is something wrong with the game. You have the devs acknowledging there's something wrong with the game. Yet 5 to 6 months later, the issue is still not fixed. And then you look into stuff like this, and it perfectly aligns with what people are saying about League of Legends. How it feels as if they almost rig your matches. And it's like the same thing when you call cheats. People will just say you're salty. But honestly, I think it's much more likely that these companies are doing this, because it's like, why would you not? Right? Like, if you're making the business decisions at the company, like, why would you not do this? Because once again, people are writing literal research papers. You have people doing like college graduated people, like with business degrees and everything, are doing research, and they find that this system works at retaining players. So if you know this works, like, why would you not do it? I think you just have to be, once again, like really naive to believe that this isn't even a possibility. And the biggest issue I took with the person I played the game with recently is they're essentially saying that, oh, well, they would never do that because it would ruin the integrity of the game. And like bro, why the fuck do they care about the integrity of the game? Like, why would they ever care about the integrity of the game? Do you think the company is worried about the integrity of the game, or making as much money as possible? Seriously, sit there and think about that. Like esports and Valorant, like, I'm just spitballing it here, but I'm guessing it's like less than 10% of their revenue overall, right? Like, a majority of the money is coming from the 90% of the player, or 99% of the player base, or 95, let's say, that doesn't care about esports. Like, a majority of the people who play the game and are spending money on the game, they don't care about esports. Also, you're never going to have access to the code of the game, So you're never going to be able to prove it's a thing. You can only do it like based on feeling. And when you have large numbers of people saying there's something wrong with the game, especially people in the higher ranks who aren't just salty that they're winning or losing, then it's like there is an issue there. To go back to the salty thing, because people once again just try to act like you're salty. And in this game, I stomp people, but I can acknowledge that, hey, it kind of seems like I had an unfair advantage the entire game, especially when like the previous game, it felt like I was behind everybody. And then this gets into an even bigger issue that I think like this can explain like a lot of the toxicity in both League of Legends and Valorant, because both of these games are like a special kind of toxic. And I think a lot of it, honestly, is systems like these where they're trying to force you wins or losses. And in the case where they're trying to force you losses, we could go back to Act 4. I could click like any random game here. And it's like, I'm Diamond 1. Why am I being matched with people in Gold 3 who I couldn't even queue with in the game? And like what are these teams? And you see I'm like 24 kills, most on the team. This guy, it seems like he's a smurf or whatever. That's a whole nother issue for another day. But it's like, why are you being ranked with like all of these low ranked players? It makes you think. It makes you think like, oh, maybe they are trying to force you losses. But that leads to toxicity because you have such a variation in skill that both players are going to be mad. The gold doesn't want to be in the game with diamonds, and the diamond doesn't want to be in game with gold. Yet somehow it still happens, even though objectively it shouldn't. So I want someone to explain that one to me. Like, we could look at another one here, and this is like all around like the same period. So still Diamond 1, but now I'm in a game with like Immortals and all that. Like there's just such a like disparity there. Like it's as if like the matchmaking just doesn't make sense half the time, unless you're looking at this and you read this and you start to realize, oh, maybe it's done on purpose. And I think that's the issue, right? Like, you could look at me. I'm someone who plays a lot. Like, I play this game a lot. Like 86 hours in that act, like that's a lot of time. Once again, we can just click like any random profile here. Well, this guy's unranked, obviously on a smurf. Let's try to find someone who's like actually in the rank they're supposed to be in. Like someone who's like also diamond. One's private. This should work. Let's do coral. This guy's also smurfing. Jesus Christ. This just kind of proves how bad the issue with smurfing is. Everyone's playing on alt accounts. And it makes you wonder, like, why do people play on alt accounts? And part of it is this. It kind of explains why people play on alts, because it feels like you're being forced losses. And are you going to risk your MM? Probably not. So you play on an alt account. And they make it as easy as possible, because once again, the only thing that matters is playtime. If you're playing on 2 accounts, you're double as likely to buy things. So we looked at mine. I had about 80. We found this guy, Diamond 3, Immortal 2 peak. He has 132 hours. So he almost has almost double the amount of time that I do. And I'm someone who plays the game a lot, right? But once again, we look at the win rate, 50%, 55%. Like, this guy's a good player, obviously, right? Good, like pretty good stats. Win rate 54, 55, because that's kind of what it caps you out at. And people can deny it all they want, but I'm telling you, man, if you look through these numbers, it is very clear what is happening. And people can call me tinfoil hat or whatever, but like, the numbers don't lie, bro. Like, the system does work. Why do you think these people play this game so much? You're trying to grind and they know what they're doing. It's why the numbers of these people playing is so high. They're giving you enough wins and enough losses. I don't know. Like I said earlier, you really either have to believe it's like the best matchmaking system that has ever existed, which is just proven to be false based on the amount of people that smurf. Look at this, like 132 hours in the act. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. But this is pretty common for people in this rank, because these people, why do they play the game? Because they're fucking addicted. It's pretty clear. And now there's going to be a ton of people out there who go, oh, well, I play for fun, blah, 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 blah. And sure, like, the game is fun. Valorant's a fun game. Like, obviously, like, there's a reason we play it, right? But there's definitely some underhanded shit here going on. And it's why people queue up match after match after match. The amount of people you run into who have no clue how to play the game, but will have like 200, 300 matches queued. Why do you think they do that? Because they're trying to just rank up. They're like chasing the rank. And Riot knows that. Riot knows you're trying to chase rank. That's why they don't make it as easy as possible. Also, it's like, if you look at the hidden MMR of the game, right? Like, just think about hidden MMR for a second. So it's like, we're going to give you a rank, but the rank doesn't matter because we're going to use a hidden MMR that we're not going to show you. And you got to wonder why they don't show you. Once again, it goes back to this. And we're going to use that to match you into games. So like, they have all these advanced statistics. Like, they know exactly what gets you to play. They know exactly what doesn't get you to play. And they use that to their advantage to get you to play more. Like, I don't think this is a super far-fetched thing to say. Yet whenever you bring it up, you're just called like crazy, or people try to act like you're just bitter. But it's just the reality of the game, to be honest. And I think more people need to be aware of this, because if you're not aware of this system, it's very easy to just do what a lot of people do and just queue up game after game after game. The same thing in League of Legends is true. And if you don't believe that like this system exists, I really recommend a lot of you out there, like as someone with like high win rate, right? Like, the way you do it, as soon as you lose, just stop playing. Like, even if you get off the game for like an hour, the game acknowledges that, right? Like, the game acknowledges that like you're like likely more to quit. So what does it do? It gives you easy matches, makes it easier to rank up. But then once again, they like can't have you winning too much, because then once again you're more likely to get off because you reached your cap, let's say. I don't know. I think that's all I really had to say on this. This is kind of a long thing. I'm probably gonna try to like chop this up as much as possible. This is crazy, honestly. I think this is the problem with a lot of games right now, and I think a lot of people don't realize that, right? That like the issue with a lot of these games now is they're just using numbers to create the games. And this is like a problem with like Battlefield 2042 as well. Maybe not like EOMM specifically, but just this idea that, oh, we're gonna like run the numbers and we're gonna find the most efficient way to get people to play. And in the case of Battlefield 2042, it blew up in their face. That same kind of thinking is why you get games like that. It's why they're trying to turn Battlefield into a hero shooter, because all our numbers show us that people like hero shooters and they're more likely to play hero shooter. So that's why you get stuff like that. That's why they make complete changes to the game that make like almost no sense in a lot of modern games. And it's also why almost every single game being released is literally trying to be the same thing. I think this has been around for a while, but it's really gotten bad since like Fortnite got really popular. And not even because of like Fortnite itself, but just because game developers saw the success of a game like Fortnite and how much money that it could generate. So now everything is trying to kind of like fit that mold, let's say. And in the same way that people saw like the success of Overwatch, and that's how you get something like Valorant. These companies copy each other. Like, you're spending millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions, to create these games. Of course you're going to run the numbers and try to find the most efficient way to get money out of people. Right? Like, just use your brain, dude. Just like think about it for even 2 minutes. And you don't even necessarily have to believe that this is in Valorant, because once again, there's no proof that it's in the game. But why would there ever be? Because the only one who can prove that it exists is Riot, and they stand literally nothing to gain and everything to lose by ever admitting that it's a thing. But I think you have to be very, very naive to think that if a company like EA is doing this, if companies like Activision are doing this, that Riot would just never do it because integrity of the game, as some people would say. And that's the thing too, because like players will acknowledge that there's issues, but you don't know exactly what it is. But if you play enough of this, you could tell there's something very clearly off. And the pro players will never call it out because they're making their salary off the game. And this isn't to say that if you're a bad player, that, oh, you'll just like the game will like just force you to pop off. Like, that's silly. No one's saying that at all. Like, you can obviously be better than people at the game, and no matter what they do, you'll still be better than them at the game. But this is more just about matchmaking, right? This is more about matchmaking and how the game works. I just find it very hard to believe $1 billion company can't fix an issue that they have known to exist for a very long time, and somehow that the game felt smoother in beta than it does now. And if you look at almost all the design decisions behind Valorant, it literally, the game is trying to cater to people who, like, this is their first FPS. Maybe they didn't like CSGO because it was a little bit too hard, and CSGO is notorious for not being new player friendly. So Riot, the business, Once again, you have to think of them as a business is looking at that and thinking, oh, there's an opening in the market here for an FPS game like this that caters to people who are more casual, or not even more casual, but maybe just don't have the mechanical skill yet to go play a game like CSGO and not get frustrated. So you implement systems like these because otherwise you'll see, just like CSGO, people will burn out and leave. Now, I don't think this is a system in CSGO. I think there definitely is some advanced matchmaking to try to give you even matches similar to this. But I think Riot takes it the next step when they start doing shit where it's like you almost feel ahead of the entire server, or you feel like really far behind. And normally you can link that to how many games you've won or how many games you've lost, like recently, right? Or if you've maybe like quit the game recently. I don't know. You can't prove it 100%, but it is what it is. I'm just trying to get my opinion on this. I think more people should probably be aware of things like this and how game developers are taking advantage of people. And one more thing before I leave, we could look at an article here from the BBC. The link between loot boxes and problem gambling has been robustly observed. A report carried out by researchers at the universities of Plymouth and Wolverhampton found that loot boxes are structurally and psychologically akin to gambling. So I think it's important to know with loot boxes because it kind of like just proves my point even more, right? That like game developers don't necessarily care about doing the right thing. They look at you as a customer and they look at you as someone that they can exploit and get money out of, almost like any business. And I feel like if you look at the society we live in general, almost everyone is trying to get money out of you in one form or another. So to just act like these guys just create the game and release it for free, right? Once again, release it for free. And there's like a whole nother thing about why these people release games for free. And because once again, they've run the numbers. They found that they can make more money by releasing the game for free. But if we're looking at loot boxes, let's read this right here. Modern video games then amplify this idea by having many overlapping variable ratio schedules, says Clark. Trying to level up, advance your avatar, get rare add-ons, build up in-game currency all at the same time. What this means is that there's a regular trickle of some kind of reinforcement. Whether you're watching your XP climb up to the next level in Overwatch or you're collecting scraps in Battlefield 1 by breaking down skins, there's a constant sense of reward leading to reward. The clever or insidious bit is how a loot box is wired into the game and how it doles out its baubles, keeping a player on the knife edge between falling hungry and feeling rewarded. Yeah, so like these things are designed from the ground up to manipulate you. Like, and people will be like, oh, well, Valorant doesn't have loot boxes, but it's just this same ideology. They've recognized that loot boxes are not favorable to most people. That will get them bad PR. That will not be good. But when you implement underhanded systems that the average player will never realize is in the game and will never see, like what we see here, then you can get away with it scot-free. And you can get away with literally trying to get people addicted artificially to your game. You see this all the time. You've seen it, and it's just progressively gotten worse in games, and it's part of the reason that games are so bad now. You see so many videos of people complaining about games being bad now, and it's because of practices like this. Everything is about getting money out of you. And if you're a customer or you're a consumer, especially if like you're a younger kid, because I think that's the most scummy part of all of this, is that these game developers are just taking advantage of mostly children. Like if you look at like the player base of Valorant, it's mostly children. That's who they're trying to take advantage of. And just like kids will defend Xbox and Microsoft and Fanboy and all that stuff, they'll defend Riot in the same way. And they'll watch this video. They'll say, oh, none of this exists. You're just salty. Riot would never do anything wrong, which is weird. Very weird. I don't understand how people defend these billion-dollar companies that are known to try to squeeze every last penny out of you. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to say on the topic. Games are very insidious. Still fun. I still enjoy playing Valorant, but I think people just need to realize like what it is. And honestly, once you start to realize what the system is, you can enjoy the game a lot more, because you do start to realize like a lot of stuff is just outside of your control. Now, this isn't to say, once again, that like if you're bad, you're like the game will just boost you up. But in a lot of the cases that I've seen, the game just rewards people for queuing up a ton, regardless if they're good at the game or not. but you have to play like a stupid amount of games. Like I said, like we're looking here, I got like 86 hours and I'm like a solid player based on my stats, so I'm able to rank up. But you see people with just far worse stats, but they play like double the games and they're still ranking up because Riot knows eventually if that person's not ranking up, they're just going to stop playing the fucking game. But they can't have them rank up too much because then they're just going to get stomped every game. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing. I think at the very least, even if you don't necessarily agree with everything I had to say in this video, I just ask you to objectively think about it. Honestly, just like objectively think about it. Objectively think about what Riot stands to gain from adding systems like this. Yeah, I once again, there's no reason for them to ever tell you that it's not in the game, or there's no reason for them to tell you that it's in the game. So they're never going to do it. So there's never going to be concrete proof that these things exist. All we have to go off of is the patents that these companies sign, and still you're not going to see all of those. But yeah, this isn't really talked about much. You kind of call it a little bit of conspiracy theorist, I guess, if you believe these things exist. But the companies stand everything to gain from it, and at the end of the day, you are just a customer that they would like to take money from. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I know a lot of you guys out there probably play Valorant, especially if you're watching this video. What do you feel about this? Do you guys feel like this does happen? Do you feel like there's any validity to what I said here? Hopefully I can cut this down because I've been recording for like 40 minutes about this. But yeah, like I said, I've been thinking about this a lot and I wanted to make a video about it because you don't really hear too many people talking about it. But yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.